Why Reacher is a perfect adaptation of the Jack Reacher books. Earlier this month, the news broke that Reacher, Amazon's TV series based on the character from the best-selling series of novels, has been recommissioned for a second season. It's not hard to see why, with generally favorable reviews from critics and some of the best viewing figures for an Amazon drama series. Alan Ritchson's hyper-masculine portrayal of the former Army major turned vigilante dispenses justice Clint Eastwood style, yet cares about women's freedoms and race equality. Not merely a loner, Reacher is actually quite lonely. The character's creator Lee Child once commented, "In my experience as a person, the people who I've met who are the most likely to become those lonely wanderers are ex-military. I wanted a lonely man, alienated, and therefore his background was likely to be ex-military." Reacher represents a new take on the Lone Ranger character that is the stock in trade of so many blood and guts action thrillers. Here is why Reacher is the perfect adaptation of the Jack Reacher books. You'd have to be living in a cave not to be aware of Tom Cruise's impressive bona fides as an action hero. Even as he reaches the age at which most actors pass on action-heavy roles, he turns 60 in July, Cruise is still doing backflips, snapping the bad guy's neck, and saving the day. We expect all of this and more in the 7th installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, which is currently in post-production with an anticipated release date of July 2023. An 8th and final installment is reportedly being filmed. And yet, his performances in Jack Reacher 2012 and Jack Reacher Never Go Back 2016 never quite energized either critics or fans of the book series. Part of it had to do with his stature. While Cruise passed muster as Reacher, many felt that the actor simply didn't have the physical presence to offer a faithful portrayal of a character who is described in the novels as a hulk of a man, a former military policeman who is extremely tall and extremely broad. Ritchson doesn't quite measure up to Reacher's 6'5" stature, but at 6'4", he's not far off. And the man who played Ripley superhero Hawk in HBO's Titans series, which was recently renewed for a 4th season, can hardly be said to be lacking in the muscle department either. And why should it? Lee Child has had to field a fair amount of criticism for the nakedly commercial tone of his novels over the years, but the fact remains that his books regularly hit the bestseller lists for a reason. The Jack Reacher book series is tightly plotted, well-paced stories with the right amount of twists and turns. They are seldom left open-ended and are tonally coherent, which is why the series has sold well over 40 million copies to date. Where other TV series and films have meddled with the source material and done fatal damage to the original story's allure in the process, fans of sci-fi comedy still wince at the 2005 remake of Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the least said about Tom Hooper's 2019 film version of Cats, the better Amazon's adaptation offers neat, economical, and surprisingly faithful versions of the novels. As Child has written more than 20 so far with the promise of more to come, it looks like it will be some time before Jack Reacher's well runs dry. When Amazon Prime released the first season of Reacher, fans of Lee Child's Jack Reacher novels were both excited and skeptical. The series, based on Killing Floor, the first novel in the franchise, promised to bring the beloved character to life in a way that previous adaptations hadn't fully captured. Fortunately, Reacher quickly proved itself to be a near-perfect adaptation of the books, nailing both the character and the tone that have made Child's novels so successful. From the casting to the storytelling, here's why Reacher stands out as a faithful and satisfying interpretation of the Jack Reacher universe. 1. Alan Ritchson as Jack Reacher. Casting is often the make-or-break factor for book-to-screen adaptations, and Reacher nailed it with Alan Ritchson in the lead role. For years, fans of the books had a clear image of Jack Reacher, a towering, physically intimidating man who stands at 6'5" and weighs around 250 pounds of solid muscle. Reacher's imposing size is central to his character, as it allows him to effortlessly take down multiple opponents and intimidate his enemies without saying much. The casting of Tom Cruise in the 2012 and 2016 Jack Reacher films, while controversial, didn't sit well with many fans because Cruise lacked the physicality that defines Reacher. At 5'7", Cruise's portrayal, while competent in terms of acting, didn't capture the essence of the character's physical dominance. Enter Alan Ritchson. Standing 6'2" and with a muscular build, Richardson embodies the Reacher described in the books. His presence on screen is immediately convincing, and he brings a balance of stoic intensity, dry humor, and sheer physical power that Reacher fans had longed for. Richardson's portrayal also nails the quiet, calculating side of Reacher's personality. Jack Reacher is a man of few words, but his mind is constantly at work, analyzing every situation for threats and opportunities. Richardson manages to communicate this with subtle expressions, body language, and moments of introspection, making his version of Reacher feel authentic and multidimensional. 2. Faithful storytelling. One of the biggest strengths of the Reacher series is how closely it follows the plot and structure of the books. The first season adapts Killing Floor, staying true to the book's narrative while making some necessary adjustments for television. Fans of the novel will recognize many of the key scenes and moments, from Reacher's arrival in the small town of Margrave, Georgia, to the tense confrontations with corrupt local officials and dangerous criminals. The pacing of the show also mirrors the steady, methodical way that Reacher uncovers the mystery in the books. There's no rush to throw Reacher into action scenes for the sake of excitement. Instead, the show takes its time building tension, allowing the audience to follow Reacher's investigative process. This slow-burn approach feels true to the novels, where Reacher's intelligence and instincts are as important as his ability to throw a punch. Additionally, the series doesn't shy away from the violence and brutality that are present in the books. Reacher is a former military policeman with exceptional combat skills, and when he gets into a fight, it's often swift and brutal. The action scenes in Reacher are choreographed to show Reacher's efficiency and ruthlessness, much like in the novels where he dispatches his enemies with precision. 3. The gritty atmosphere. The Jack Reacher books often take place in small, forgotten towns in the U.S. where corruption festers beneath the surface, and danger is always lurking around the corner. Reacher captures this atmosphere perfectly. The show's setting in Margrave is a sleepy, seemingly innocuous town, but it quickly becomes clear that there's more to it than meets the eye. The show expertly builds a sense of unease and tension, just as the books do. Visually, the show uses a muted color palette and gritty cinematography to create a world that feels lived in and dangerous. This aesthetic mirrors the tone of the books, where Reacher is often navigating through places that are run down, corrupt, or on the edge of collapse. The setting becomes a character in itself, adding to the sense of isolation and lawlessness that Reacher often finds himself confronting. 4. Character development and dialogue. In the novels, Reacher is a loner, a drifter who has no permanent home or connections, but he occasionally forms temporary alliances with local law enforcement or civilians. The show preserves this aspect of his character, showing Reacher as a man who prefers to work alone but isn't afraid to team up when necessary. His relationships with characters like Roscoe and Finley are well developed, and the dialogue remains sharp and true to the novels. Reacher's interactions are often marked by dry humor and a sense of detachment, which Richardson delivers with perfect timing. The show captures the essence of Reacher's personality, where he can be both intimidating and surprisingly gentle with those who earn his respect. This balance of toughness and compassion is key to the character, and Reacher does an excellent job of showcasing it. 5. Respect for the source material. Perhaps the most important reason why Reacher is a